Start all. Boom. Boom! I'm back. I'm sorry if the lighting is weird, but the lighting is weird. It's nearing sunset, and I want to have Rizzy out, this dude, so he gets a little bit of natural sunlight just as it's coming in the door here. So I got the patio open, and I got this light up over here, which is trying to compete with the sun, but the sun is the sun. Hey, dude. Hi. Hi. So if you hear Lou barking, the patio is open, and that's why. Like I said, it's afternoon, it's evening, it's getting to be about Rizzy's bedtime, which I find this is the best time for me to take him out and get him the last bit, a little bit of sunlight, and just get in a cuddle with him. Like, he's starting to mellow out, starting to chill. Good time to handle him. Except, what are you doing? You climbing too high? You're climbing too high. What's up, buddy? Hi. Hey, guy. So, gonna try wrapping this up. I took a break earlier because I needed to write another section. I needed to brainstorm. I needed to walk the dog. Walked the dog, ate lunch, took a shower, called the wife to kind of beg a little to see if I was going to see her tonight. I'm not. To those who don't know, we are separated at the moment. She's staying with her dad. Her dad is out at one of her siblings for dinner tonight, so she actually has a chance to be alone and have time to herself, which, you know, after 20 years of marriage, I have not given her a lot of time to herself because I never leave the house. So she's appreciating that. Currently, I'm living in an apartment by myself for the first time in my life, and she is, you know, we're both making changes. We're both adjusting and seeing, you know, how we're going to live going forward. Trying to fix the marriage. Trying to work it out. Really hoping that we do. But I need to work. I need to write. Lula, don't start. Please don't start. She's about to start. There's a dog outside. Lula Bell. No. Lula, hush up. Lula, do you need to go to bed? You can go lay down. You don't need to see that. Lula, no. No. Sit. Sit. Or go have a temper tantrum. Hi, Riz. Hi. My girls. Rule about. No. My girls are noisy. My cat and my dog, those are my female pets. My lizard and my rabbit, totally silent. I appreciate that about you. I do. You don't make noise like that, bitch. Alright. Louisville, shut up. All the joys of living in an apartment. She's been a house dog for most of her life. So we are still making adjustments. Oh, let me get on my phone so I can actually see chat and communicate with people. So, do my Duolingo tonight? Or my Spanish? Is this here? Is this now? This is here now, right? Yeah. Okay. Turn that down. Flip it to the side. Yeah, it's a bummer. I miss my wife. I do. You know, but I understand her wanting to spend time by herself, wanting to be alone. Me never leaving the house and that getting on her nerves. Honestly, you know, after 20 years, I got a little tired of her always being around too. So, you know, I appreciated my time alone. But she never got to be alone in the house. Therefore, we don't even have the house anymore. Sold that, and now we are, yeah, like I said, making adjustments. And I am writing Novella. Hopefully I can get this done by Christmas and present it to her for Christmas. So, I wanted to add a whole section, like, which puts me back in the draft phase. but I knew this chapter was rough and was going to require some heavy editing. And I don't feel like working on it, if I'm being honest. I really don't. There's a big, strong part of me that just wants to sit and play video games and veg out and kind of mope. But that's where you develop discipline as a writer, as a human being, as a man, just as a person. This is where I have to push through and work to actually create something so that I can create something, so that I can give back, so I can leave my mark on the world, all that fun stuff. So, I mean, I'm feeling too lazy to read through this right now. Kind of feel like I should, but no. I need to write another slice of life. I need to write another draft section, like I said. But feeling lazy, feeling mentally lazy, which means it's more important that I do it. Right, Riz? Right. Okay. So, I suppose one thing I can do is just use ChatGPT, pop into that, write down the fragments of what I'm thinking about writing, have it spit something out to me, copy and paste that in, and then fine tune that so it actually sounds like my voice. Or just write badly and edit it into the right shape and sound and form. Okay. Remember, I want to get this done. I'm on 14. This is my second to my last key chapter. 15, I'm assuming, is going to be easier than this. And then 16 is short. 16 is very short. So I can finish this. I can absolutely finish this tonight. I just need to buckle down and get it done. And maybe when I'm done, I will reward myself by logging back into Warframe and continuing to farm for Noko. I think that's a plan. That's a goal. Make myself a nice dinner. My wife left some Two Chicks vodka. Oh, hi. In the fridge from like weeks ago. Maybe I could even reward myself with a little bit of booze. Hi. Even though I don't drink much these days. What's up, Riz? Hi. This is Rizzy, my bearded dragon. My trans. What are all the words for you again? Let's see. You're a hypo trans rainbow dunner. So hypo is hypomelanistic, meaning he doesn't have any black in his scales. He's got a lack of melanin. Yeah. Oh, look at your fat growing. Hi. So lack of melanin, translucent, meaning there's a slight transparency. Hello to his scales, and he's got darker eyes. Dunner, meaning he's got extra scales. So a lot of people were big on leatherbacks a couple of years ago. Dunner is the opposite of that, where they've got extra scales, extra spikes, scales that will go the opposite direction. Where are you trying to go, dude? Oh, your color is looking so vibrant after getting some sunlight. Yeah, hi. And this is fun for me just to have him out right now because he's not a year old yet. He'll be a year old in like 2 weeks, and typically this is an animal that ruminates. They go into hibernation over the winter, but when they're younger they don't, which means he gets more time to grow, but it also means next time at this year he's not going to get to celebrate Christmas or his birthday because he's going to be hibernating. So I get to enjoy him right now. Hi. Or maybe not. Who knows? The plan is, the wife and I are talking about moving to New Mexico next year, just so we can live somewhere else and have an adventure, because life should be an adventure. Hey, buddy. Oh, what are you thinking? You're thinking you want to have an adventure. You want to go back in your cage? Is that what you're trying to say? It seems like that's what you're doing. You're trying to go back in your cage. That's what it looks like. But you can't reach. Yeah, you want to go back in your space and go to bed. Hi. Hi, dude. Are you going to be too much of a distraction for me to write right now? I think you are. Hey, buddy. You're supposed to be working. Yeah. The other day I had him out while I was writing during this period, and he wound up snuggling in, and it was adorable. And he just sat with me for an hour. And that's one of the reasons why I got a bearded dragon, is because they are so chill. But he's still young. Still a little dude. We're still working on his handling. Hey, buddy. Hi. Oh. Put you here and just have you chill on my shoulder like you did the other day. Okay. What are you doing? You're just not going to be chill for me right now, are you? Hi. Hey, buddies. Hi, my buddies. Oh. Hello. Hello, feller. Hello, feller, dude. Shadows were growing longer as the setting sun painted the sky a blaze. Well, you were just not going to settle for me right now, are you? Oh. No, you're not. Settle a blaze of orange. Yeah, like you. Like you, my guy. Settle a blaze. A blazing orange. Orange, no. Hi. Hello. You thinking? Hi, do. Hi, buddies. Hi. You're so neat. You're so neat. Shadows were growing longer as the setting sun painted the sky a blazing orange. Ooh. You're not going to let me work. You're a fun distraction, but Garrett washed his bloodied hands in the creek. Ugh. Do I gotta put you back? I feel like I gotta put you back. Yeah, you're trying to crawl away. Hi. Ugh. You trying to go back in your tank, or are you trying to have an adventure? Because they both seem likely right now. Hello, dude. Hello. I know it looks like whiskey. It's not. It's tea. It's cold brew tea with watermelon, cucumber, and mint. And then I put some actual cucumber in there the other day to make it like good and refreshing. Hi. Let's see. Garrett washed his bloodied hands in the creek. And as... Oof. Hi. Good boy. Good boy. And as he dried them on his loincloth fashioned from a sail, he examined his reflection in the water, noting how the island had changed him. What are you doing? Is that some head bobbing? Look like you're head bobbing. Are you puffing up? Or are you puffing up? Feeling mighty? He had a growth spurt last night. He's feeling tough. You bad. You bad. You ain't bad. You ain't nothing. You big boy. Loincloth fashioned from a sail. As he examined his reflection in the water, knowing how the island had changed him. What are you head bobbing for? Oh, you're head bobbing at the keyboard? It's because it's clacking. Hey, dude. Should we get you closer to the camera? Should we show everybody what you look like? Here's my handsome boy. Here's my handsome dude. Look at that tail. Oh, look at that tail and how it just keeps going. Yeah. And how the island had changed him. Hey, buddies. Hi, buddies. Sorry, I'm hearing the couple on the other side of me yelling or excited or, I don't know, being loud, having emotions. Good for them. At his side hung some skinned rodents. Hi. The bounty of his traps. So, yeah. Bounty of his traps. Which had become so much more successful after slaying the... Oh, hi, oh, hi. large boar that had been destroying them. His body was lean and tan from his island diet and the work that went into finding it. His hair had grown long and was tied back in a long wavy tail. Contrast to his shaved to keep Arista happy. He recognized himself in the Pampered Prince. Washed ashore so many months before on this magical isle. Garrett smiled with contentment. The man he admired smiling back. And was set to eat with his beloved. I thought that was all he wanted in this world. The familiar scent of salt, water, salt, and hibiscus. And the sound of a soft, sweet, slightly sad song. Though he knew the melody well, he had never learned the words, but still felt it, every note was etched on his heart. Despite not having heard it in months. So many run-ons. Hey, thank you. How you doing, Drowning Devil? This is me doing a draft section and showing just how bad it can be when I first start out, where I'm just creating one fat giant Lulu as a plug-in. So I feel like I need some filler, some added tension to my story before I move on to this final beat. Sorry, not having heard it in months. He followed the trail of the melody as he once had, as if in a dream. Yeah, no, I get it. I actually used to do that a lot, and I would say marijuana is something that has kind of stopped me from a lot of writing in the past. If anything, I'd recommend the George Carlin route, where he would write everything sober and then take one hit and then go in and do his edits to add flourish and all that. The issue that I've had writing high, and maybe this works for you, but for me, it gives me too many ideas at once. Like, it takes me too many directions to actually, like, write something solid. But by all means, I mean, try and take careful note. I also find it doesn't help my anxiety. I used to smoke a lot of pot, like 10 bowls a day, smoke a lot of pot, like wake up in the middle of the night, smoke 2 bowls so I could go back to sleep, and then wake up high and smoke all day. Like, marijuana was a major issue for me, a big part of like why I'm kind of where I'm at. right now in life. So I've been having to abstain. I haven't had any marijuana since Thanksgiving. And that was some edibles. And then before that, I think I had some a week or two prior to that because of a concert that I went to. Yeah. Well, hopefully it doesn't, impede you too much. But yeah, it's, like I said, probably better for the edit phase. Though he knew the melody well, he had never learned the words, but still felt every note was etched on his heart despite not having heard it in months. Ugh, that sentence is rough. There's a lot of rough sentences I'm writing, but that's fine. This is a draft section. I just need to power through it. He followed the trail of the melody as he once had, as if in a dream. As he neared the shore, the song yeah, where can I check that out? As he neared the shore, the song met with the rhythm of the tide. To Wattpad. Okay, I'm not familiar with what Wattpad is. Is that an app or a site? As he neared the shore, the song met with the rhythm of the tide. Walked along the beach, pulled by the melody. At last he saw her. Arista sat upon her. Okay, cool. Sweet. Arista sat upon her crown of rocks. Maybe throne of rocks. Singing the song he once found so hopelessly seductive. Appreciating her beauty in the dusk light. No, let's just say in the setting sun. Yeah, a lot of programs will take your stuff and just make it shrink. Like when I published something at KDP, I was pretty impressed at just how much it seemed smaller after working on it for so long. He was sure. Oh, I guess setting sun at the beginning and then setting sun here. In the Ebbing light. No. Waning day. Yeah. Hey, buddy. You settled in? Gonna tucker you out? You starting to sleep on me? Yeah? Okay. He watched her a while, appreciating her beauty in the waning day. He marveled. No. He marveled at her beauty. Is that not how you spell? He marveled. No. He marveled at her beauty in the waning day. Shadows were growing longer, and as the setting sun painted the sky a blazing orange, Garrett washed his bloodied hands in the creek, and as he dried them on his loincloth fashioned from a sail, examined his reflection in the water. Still calm, and noting how the island had changed him. At his side hung some skinned rodents, the bounty of his traps, which had become so much more successful after slaying the large boar that had been destroying them. These sentences are saying way too much. I don't think I do. Except for that, apparently. See if there's something I can do with that. Sorry, technology is tough. I'm not sure where to find that. Let's see. This. Twitch. Stream Manager. Moderation. Settings. Let's see, what am I looking for again? Link sharing? Is that what I need? Let's see. Settings, stream. All right. Permissions. No raids. Let's see. Hey, buddy. Let's see. I'm not seeing what to click on. What the hell? Collections, clips, copyright claims, moderation, settings, analytics. Oh, you slipping? Hey, buddies. Settings, stream, you said. Yeah, I do have a Discord. Jack Dace. It's the same on everything. I'm on every forum as Jack Dace, JAKDACE. Yeah, absolutely. Send that to me. I'm gonna get back to my own editing. That sucks. I'll figure that out. At his side hung some skinned rodents. The bounty of his traps, which had become so much more successful, or so much more, had become successful after slaying the large boar that had been destroying them. Yeah, get rid of that too. His body was lean and tan. Change that. It's tan and lean from his island diet. And the work that went into finding it. His hair had grown long and was tied back in a long wavy tail, in contrast to his face that was clean shaven to keep Arista happy. He hardly recognized himself from the pampered prince that had washed ashore so many months before on this magic isle. Prior. Garrett smiled with contentment at the stranger smiling back at him. Soon he would sit to eat with his beloved and felt that that was all he wanted in this world. On the gentle breeze was the familiar scent of salt and hibiscus and the sound of a soft, sweet, slightly sad song. A soft, sweet song. Though he knew the melody well, he had never learned the words, but still felt every note was etched on his heart. Jacked Ace. Jakdace. So neither of those. Split that for the action. Yep. Should be a picture of me, possibly with this dude. Yeah, I think you're in the picture too, Riz. At last he saw her, Arista, sitting, that's sad, sitting upon her throne of rocks, singing the same sad song he had once found so hopelessly seductive. Boom. He marveled at her beauty in the waning day. He felt the familiar longing. wander out to her. Felt the familiar longing to wander out to her. Steadied his resolve by waiting at the shore. He looked out over the distant horizon. And shared in the emotion of the song. To no longer be found. Your body recognized the desire to leave that place, to no longer be bound. No. Garrett rekindled a fire. Many times before. Started cooking his quarry. Transforming at the water's edge. Garrett rekindled a fire in a familiar site situated with logs. Was the wrong site. situated with logs for sitting that they had used many times before, and started cooking his quarry. The smell of smoke and meat brought Arista out of her melodic state as she swam to him, transforming at the water's edge. As she neared, she caught a and called to him. What's wrong, my love? You look so sad. No. Garrett sighed. It's just your song stirring up thoughts of home. I love it here, and I love you. It is a shame. My parents will never meet. Will never meet you. And I may never see them again. Hey, buddies. Hi, buddies. What you think? Does this work? I don't know if this works. I don't know if this works. So Control C. Go to ChatGPT. Parentheses. This is what I've added. Not on it. It is another draft to work on now. How to fine-tune. I need a better answer from Garrett at the end. Something fuller. Awesome. I'm going to check on that in just 1 second. Control V. No. Control V. Boom. Alright. Pop that in. Oh. Alright, Rizzy dude. Oh, this is so cute. This is so cute. I love these cuddle moments with him. Trying to figure out how to get these timed where I pull him out right before he's ready to go to bed as the sun is setting on him so I can get a little sunlight on him in the evening. And then he's antsy because he wants to go back to his tank and go to sleep. But eventually he settles down and settles on me, and that's how I get little lizard snuggles. Which is adorable. Adorable. This is the first lizard I've had since I was a kid, and it's been pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome, just the bonding with this dude. I got a bearded dragon because of their intelligence, and because they do like really bond with their owners. And I was in debate as to whether or not to get one for like over a year, but it's theorized like these guys have souls. Like that's how developed their brains are and how conscious they are. Like just awesome little dude. Hey buddy. Hi buddy. You're so sweet. You're so sweet. I love you. I do. A little lizard. I wasn't sure about lizard love, but it's real. It's very real. Ah. You know, 60. Oh, is this you? No. Blub. Are you Blub? Okay. Oh, what's that? Ah. Mind if I read it out loud here on Twitch? Is that okay with you? Alright. Chapter 1. It was early morning, a drizzle of rain just beyond the aisle where Princess Magnolia and I stood. Oh, you went for first person. Let's do visit site. It's not letting me opening up the whole thing here. Okay. Ah. Now I gotta zoom up because I feel old now. It was early morning, a drizzle of rain just beyond the aisle where Princess Magnolia and I stood. Magnolia held her bow to her chest as she looked to the sky, watching the clouds turn pink and orange. shadows still heavy with night in the small archery range. I watch her from my spot on the stone wall. She only wore her chemise? No dress, no shoes. She insisted they would simply take too long to put on. I'm beginning to notice a pattern, my lady, I say softly. And what might that be? She chuckled lightly as she stepped out into the rain, pulling an arrow from her quiver. You wake me at the oddest hours to go do archery. I move my hands as I speak, emphasizing the words. I step closer to the rain, staring at her hands as she draws the bow back with such ease. Or to fish, or just because you had a random thought. Her chemise? I know what you're talking about, like it's a nighty type of deal. Yeah, medieval underwear. It's starting to dampen, turning sheer and heavy. Her hair stuck to her forehead and made dark, winding paths down her back. I shook my head. Don't look at the princess like that. My lady, her voice wobbled as I looked at my outstretched hand. Yellow, shining scales bloomed at the back of my hand where the water had hit. I take a sharp inhale and slowly retract, whipping my hand off on my chemise. I look up, my eyes wide, as I watch blue light shoot through the princess's veins and into her hand. One second. I need to... This is bugging me. How to pronounce chemise? Chemise. What? That can't be right.
You have an endless scope of freelancers at your fingertips to help you progress in whatever category.
Skip.
Chemise.
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 Okay. Chemise. So we retract, whipping my hand off on my chemise. I look up, my eyes widening, as I watch blue light shoot through the princess's veins and into her hand. The arrow explodes in her hand, turning to splinters and flying in all directions. Smoke billowed from her palm, filling the small area quickly. I moved before the splinters could hit the ground, coughing as I reached out for her. Magnolia! Then I heard a sharp laugh. Magnolia's laugh. I battled the smoke away, and the rain took the rest. She sat in the dirt, her chemise now muddy and fully wet. She was laughing hard, seemed to punch out of her as she stared at her arms. We watched the light recede to her chest before receding out of view. She looks up at me, her eyes shining and her smile wide, dimpling her cheeks. Did you see that, Violet? She yelled, pushing her hair out of her face, waving her arm in my direction for me to help her up. I huffed, grabbing her forearm and heaving her back onto her feet. She held onto my shoulders as she continued to giggle. I stared down at the ground, down at my webbed and scaly feet. I squeezed my eyes shut as I realized the princess was staring at me. Don't stare, I mumbled, but before Magnolia could reply, we hear footsteps coming our way from one of the doors into the range. Magnolia bends down, plucking her bow from the mud and catching her hand in one easy motion. Come on, she whispered, a smile still plastered on her face before dragging me through one of the doors. The doors shut softly behind us, muffling the rain as Magnolia led us down halls and through passages with practiced ease. The sun began to rise, windows spilling light down on us as we crept through the halls. My skin itched as scales turned back to skin. My human feet padded past half-awake guards. In here, Magnolia whispered as she pulled me into her room, gently closing the door behind us. Then we stood still, staring at the door, then at one another. Magnolia raised a finger to her lips, still curling into a soft smile. She shushed gently as we heard footsteps coming down the corridor. I stared at the door. She stared at me. But slowly the footsteps passed, and I met her gaze once more. That bit is a little bit poetic. I stared at the door, she stared at me, but slowly the footsteps passed, and I met her gaze once more. Like, that sounds like a bar of poetry right there. That's nice. She smiles and steps up to me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders and pulling me toward the rear of her bedroom. You always do that, she chuckled as I stared at my feet. Watched myself walk over dark wood floors, thin slats placed side by side, where her curtains screen. Okay. And then planning your okay. One thing that I'm noticing that you want to watch out for is your tense. You go from past to present tense, back and forth quite a little bit. Like it was early morning, I watch her from my spot on the stone wall. So that can be a little bit jarring to pull people out. And then I'm seeing like word repetition. I do this all the time too, especially in drafts where you want to punctuate a little bit and make sure that you're breaking stuff up. Like this is the stuff that I catch myself doing in edits. So not to be overly critical, I'm just in edit mode. But yeah, it sounds interesting. I see what you're going for. You kind of got like the whole naughty princess thing going on where she's a little bit defiant. She's got her own weird schedule. Maybe on the spectrum because she can't sleep well and she's got weird hours. And then you've got the mermaid magic where water turns her back into her fish form or mer form, however that may manifest. So yeah, it sounds sweet, and like I said, it's got a bit of a poetic touch to it. Yeah, keep working at it for sure. Yeah, keep it up. Yep. Um, so I got a thing about poetry, a bit of a theory, at least my own opinion. Well, not really my own opinion. Poetry, like in its traditional sense, originally is something that was created for bards. Like it wasn't about rhyme as much as it was about the cadence. And so a bard, a storyteller, could remember the cadence of their lines, like the rhythm that it was spoken at, and that way they could get it down by rote. So as you're going through one section by rote, where it becomes almost automatic for you to say it, your mind can be going, okay, so what happens next? If you move, you're gay, and so is if you talk. Okay. I mean, that got blocked. A comment. If you move, you're gay, and so is if you talk. All right. I don't know whether to allow that or not. I think it's supposed to be offensive. Um, yeah, yeah. So there's a book I wish I would have read. I wish I would have bought back in the day called The Making of a Sage. Maybe this is where I got it from. But there's an old ideology that um, or no, the making of a druid. That's what it is. So in order to be a druid, you first had to study as a poet, as a young man, in order to learn cadence and rhythm and stuff like that. And then after you became a poet, you could then move on to becoming a bard, which basically means you could recite longer poems in bardic form or stories. And then after training as a bard for like 2 decades, then you could become a druid. So that recitation and that ability to remember legends and myths and stories was all vital to building you toward um, that natural magic. Because druids and shamans, when you really get down to what they are, they're storytellers. They're people that keep the mythology, that keep the religion alive by passing things down. Um, oh, what's the word? When you don't have it written, Native Americans did this too. It's orators, it's the verbal myth. Damn it, I'm drawing a blank. Okay, that's cool. I appreciate translators. Um, the guy. Oh, you were just nestled in there, huh? So yeah, but they all go together. Poetry goes to storytelling, goes to myth, to religion, to, like we were talking about earlier, psychology, unpacking the mind. So yeah, keep it up, keep going. Let's see, where was I? Oh, that's right. I was using ChatGPT to help me edit and figure out where I should be going next. Okay. So you're absolutely right about where this scene needs to land emotionally, and you're very close. What you added is doing the correct narrative job. It just needs tightening and more conscious final articulation from Garrett. Yeah. So the moment wounds without making him careless or cruel. Yes. I'll break this into three parts. What's already working, don't lose this. Where it's diffusing instead of cutting, a fuller, true answer Garrett can give at the end with options. What's working very well is the visual self-recognition. This paragraph is strong and important. He hardly recognized himself from the pampered prince that had washed ashore so many months prior. This is exactly the right prelude to the coming fracture. The irony is clear. He feels whole, he feels adapted, he feels chosen, which makes what he says next land harder. The song as a trigger. Excellent instinct to bring her song back. The key line is he recognized the desire to leave that place, to no longer be bound. That sentence is doing huge thematic work. It mirrors Arista's later confession. It links land longing and sea longing. It sets up the storm as an expression of that desire. Don't cut this, maybe sharpen it, but keep it. Waiting at the shore. This detail is subtle and very good. He felt the familiar longing to wander out to her, but steadied his resolve by waiting at the shore. This quietly reinforces boundaries, difference, the fact that he can choose restraint, she cannot choose freedom, where the scene softens instead of hurts. The problem is not what Garrett says, it's how neatly he explains himself. Right now, his final line is reasonable, loving, and fair. I love it here and I love you, but it is a shame my parents will never meet you. That's true, but that's too complete. It closes the thought instead of leaving it open. What Arista needs to hear and fears hearing is not, I miss my parents, but this is a world I still belong to that you cannot enter. You want Garrett to speak honestly but imperfectly, to articulate a truth without realizing its cost. And that's one of the issues that I have with writing Garrett, is I write him too well initially, and then I gotta go back and I gotta unsmooth. I gotta add edges to him. Because I write like the author. I write like a philosopher, or like a psychologist, or like a TED Talk sometimes with him. How to fine-tune the ending concrete rewrites. Alright, bye dude. What do I typically write poetry about? I don't write poetry anymore. I quit. I got published when I was 20 something. I got published. I won some type of an award for a really basic poem that I did. And I don't know. I was kind of disappointed by the whole thing. So I just stopped and focused more on writing stories than poems. I struggle with poetry quite a bit. I feel like poetry has quite a few uses. One is you're trying to say something that you can't actually express, like you don't have the exact words for it, so you use poetry in order to try to find the meaning. Nietzsche talks about poetry that a poet is someone who steals from someone in the marketplace and then sets up shop right next to them. So there's that aspect of poetry that I don't really care for, and then there's another use for poetry that I find more viable, more useful, and that is where you know exactly what you want to say, but it's so crass and so rude and so blunt that people just can't be receptive to it, so you use poetry in order to encourage them to have like an aha sort of moment. So I think those are the two uses. Like, you either don't know what you're trying to say, or you know what you're going to say isn't going to be received. And me, I go for blunt truth. Like, I feel like poetry is trying to say what you can't otherwise express. So if you were able to express it and articulate it properly, it would cease to be poetic. So good poetry, in my own mind, destroys itself. And that's me overthinking it quite a bit, I'm sure. But that's kind of why I choose to focus more on storytelling than poetry. I'd rather like write stories that have characters that are poetic than actually write poetry myself, if that makes any sense. But I don't want to say I've graduated past it, but it's poetry is a lot like art and Christianity, where a lot of people will claim that that's what they're doing, and it doesn't really manifest in what they're producing. You know, I don't know. I tend to be a little bit overly harsh about it. It's, yeah. They should be dark. They should be you trying to like figure stuff out, and like I said, it's the stuff that you can't otherwise express. And then the third and final form of poetry is what I was talking about before, where poetry is about storytelling. It's a tool that's used in order to help you as a story writer. Because, like I said, it used to be about cadence. It used to be about aiding in memorization. The whole thing where we have poetry that rhymes, that came about from the French. The French did that, along with romanticizing stuff. If you want to read like my personal favorite poet, John Milton, the guy who created Paradise Lost. I think Paradise Lost is one of the greatest masterpieces of the humanities. I absolutely adore it. It's one of those things where I need intense focus to be able to sit down, read it, and really appreciate it. Love it. Like, not only is it perhaps the greatest poetic work ever created in my mind, it's something that, if you really read the descriptions, it sounds like Dragon Ball Z. It's like high art and anime perfectly fused in classical literature. And I love it. I love Milton. I love all of his poems, his work. They get me, like they make me emotional. I used to bring Milton's poetry, his work, to work with me to read on my breaks, and I had to stop doing that because I would break down crying reading his stuff. Like, just absolutely amazing stuff. Yeah, huge fan of Milton. I think Milton is great. Milton is somebody who wrote so much religious stuff back in the day that was just honest, like what he felt in his heart, that it made the church mad, and the church was talking about like throwing him in prison or even executing him as a heretic for the stuff that he wrote. And he wound up going blind. And so the church is like, oh, well, God delivered justice. We don't have to do anything to him now. And after he went blind is when he wrote Paradise Lost, which the most engaging character, the most fascinating character throughout all of Paradise Lost is Lucifer. So just incredible. And it was a major just burn to the church. And you see something similar with the Odyssey too. Like, people say that Homer, the writer of the Odyssey, was blind. So there's a lot to be said for those blind bards, where they're not distracted by the world at all, and it's all in their head, and they create something truly epic. So let's go back to this editing. How to fine-tune the ending, concrete rewrites. Below are 3 variants depending on how sharp you want the cut. All preserve Garrett as loving and sincere. Option 1, gentle, tragic, honest. This is the recommended. This keeps Garrett sympathetic but lets the pain breathe. No, Garrett said quietly, not sad, just remembering. I like that. He turned the meat over the fire, watching the fat hiss and drip into the embers. Your song makes me think of the life I had before I knew you, he admitted, of my parents, of faces that will never see what I've become. Oh, it ties it back. I like that. He hesitated, then added softer, I choose this place. I choose you. I chose this place, I chose you, but sometimes I wonder who I would be if I hadn't. He doesn't say he regrets staying. He doesn't say he wants to leave. He admits uncertainty, and uncertainty is poison to someone trapped. You know what? Actually, the last time I tried writing poetry was when ChatGPT first came out, because everybody was talking about how, or not everybody, but some people were talking about how, like, there are demons in the machine, like it's demons in the AI and stuff like that, and that kind of got my wheels going to where I used ChatGPT to start writing a book of poetry called The Devil's Wine, and it was supposed to be poems from hell. So I was taking demons from the Ars Goetia and writing in their descriptions to ChatGPT and say, okay, how would this demon write a poetry about this subject? And then fine-tuning it from there. So that's the last time I was doing any type of poetry, was trying to write demonic poetry, like poetry from hell. That's the last poetry project that I was working on, like a few years ago. And that goes in line with my whole wanting to write a book about hell as my magnum opus that I've got outlined and ready to go. I just need to sit down and actually like do the craft work on it. But I'm doing a lot of other writing projects to teach myself how to write better before I actually write that one. But yeah, that's the last time I dabbled with poetry. It would have been like, I don't know, 3 years ago now. Hey buddy, hi buddies. I do. I really, really do. It's one hell of a way to cheat. I mean, I'm doing it right now. I'm looking at something to help me like generate faster, which I feel like more and more authors are using ChatGPT. Like Stephen King is the most prolific author that I know of who produces more than anybody else. And he started using ChatGPT when it came out in order to like go through his books and was like, yeah, it's a lot faster. It's a lot faster. And so, yeah, in order to get out of my procrastination, in order to get me to stop sitting around and waiting for lightning to strike, waiting for inspiration, I can use ChatGPT and be like, all right, this is the rough idea. Can you help me get the gears turning? So, yeah, it's definitely a cheat. Option 2, the line that echoes the storm. I love you, he said, and I love this life. He stared out toward the darkening horizon, but loving something doesn't mean the rest of the world stops calling. That's brutal. Later, when she says, the horizon beckons and rebuffs me. Most dangerous honesty, sharper cut. Use this if you want Arista's later guilt to feel almost inevitable. I'm not sad, he said after a moment, just aware. Aware that if you ever could leave these waters, I would follow you without hesitation. He swallowed. Oh. And aware that if I ever left this island, I don't know if you could follow me. Oh. Okay. And then small line level polishing suggestions. Okay. Yeah, it's pointing out a lot of things. I gotta, like, yeah, grammatical stuff too, which is awesome. The fact that I can just pop it in and have it be like, okay, you misspelled this stuff. Like, oh, thank God. Now it's easier to find. Yeah, I'm gonna cut paste this. Boom. And I'm over 3,000 words, so I want to cut that down. And then the sharper cut. Yeah, I'm not going to go with that. All right. And now I got too many words. But I'm going to use that. And then hate that. On one particular day, Arista had seemed particularly forlorn. On one particular day, Arista had seemed particularly forlorn. Okay. First off, we can't be using particular twice in the same sentence, or any form of it. On one particular day is a little too episodic. It's a little too once upon a time, especially for this point in the story. I could say, because I'm playing off this, the next day, Arista seemed particularly forlorn, where there had been burgeoning joy the days and weeks before. Burgeoning, expanding, increasing, building, flourishing, growing. Where there had been joy the days and weeks before. Where there had been joy 4 weeks. Where there had been joy, she suddenly seemed sullen and withdrawn. Joy and happiness. Joy and happiness. She suddenly seemed sullen and withdrawn. She suddenly seemed withdrawn. Hey, my buddies. Okay, let's power through this. Let's get this done, my dude. Garrett had awoken like he did so often these days, with Arista coiled around him, hand on his chest, chin on her hand, looking deeply and expectantly into his eyes. As they slowly fluttered open. But this morning, when they had done so, she looked sad, tired, her brow already knitted with some concern that had disturbed her in the night. Garrett had rubbed her back and then allowed his hand to settle in the small of it as he asked her what was wrong, only for her to dismiss it and swear that nothing was. Do I need something else to go in here? Nah, I can just skip ahead. Garrett had awoken like he had. Garrett had awoken like he so often did these days. Like he always did these days. With a wrist. Okay, that's one of my typos. with Arista coiled around him, hand on his chest, chin on her hand, looking deeply and expectantly into his eyes as they slowly fluttered open. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy boy. That tail. Look at that translucent tail. The way his spikes shine in the light. Yeah. I'm a feller. The next day, Arista seemed particularly forlorn. Where there had been joy and happiness, she suddenly seemed to be withdrawn. Garrett had awoken like he always did these days. With Arista coiled around him, hand on his chest, chin on her hand, looking deeply and expectantly into his eyes as they slowly fluttered open. That's a long sentence, but it's working. But this morning, when they had done so, she looked sad, tired, her brow already knitted with some concern that had disturbed her in the night. Garrett rubbed her back and then allowed his hand to settle in the small of it as he asked her what was wrong, only for her to dismiss it and swear that nothing was. But Garrett could tell by the gray and sullen sky that this was not true. So, where am I at? 3,026 words. So, I want to make sure I'm staying under 3,000 words. I don't want to go beyond that on my chapters. Hello, sweet boy. Hello, my buddies. But Garrett could tell by the gray I don't need the word and. And is one of those things that will creep up on you and you can use it way too much as a conjoiner. But Garrett could tell by the gray, sullen sky that this was not true. As they went about their day of gathering and fishing, she seemed to carry the weight I'm supposed to use a comma there. She seemed to carry the weight of the night with her well into the afternoon. When evening came, she excused herself back to the sea, claiming the land had had enough of her for now. Please, my love, she asked with a sweetness that made his teeth hurt. Surprised she didn't flake me for that. Return to your cave and do not come out. Tonight there may be a storm coming. I think I need a comma there. My love, he returned painfully, because her unspoken ache had lodged itself in his heart. What's wrong? If something is bothering you, please tell me, so you at least feel better by unpacking your heart. By unpacking your heart. Yeah. I like that line. I love that turn of phrase, to unpack your heart like a whore, is where that actually comes from. It's ripped from Hamlet. But that's not a Garrett line. That's not true to my character with him. So I can cut that. That takes me down to 3,021. It is nothing, Garrett. She looked away, but let her hand tarry over his. It is simply that the sea beckons me to restore. She let her words and her feet dwindle away as she seemed to walk with extra pain in her steps down the beach and into the sea. There was no coy return of looks. She simply faced the horizon and ushered in the change like a rolling of the tide. Leapt out of the water once, and with a flick of her large blade-like tail was gone. This is a separate action, therefore a separate paragraph. Garrett watched for a moment, feeling something squeeze in his chest before turning and letting the dense forest claim him. He slept restlessly that night, missing his sea maiden, as a chill settled into the air. Whatever semblance of sleep he got was disturbed by a raging wind. By this time he had replaced his wicker wall with something of stone, so he was secure, but the anger of the air roused him and drew him out. Rain fell in tattered torrents that would not have allowed for a torch, but Garrett knew the path down to the beach as intimately as the touch of her hand by now. When he arrived on the shore, he saw the sky ablaze with electricity, roaring with the fury of a forsaken god. Ripping itself asunder with Lulu, cool it back up to 3,023 words. Roaring with the fury of a forsaken god, and there, in the midst of it, far out to sea, he spied a monstrous shape set like a twisting dark shadow against the expanding sky. Let's make it a quaking sky. Maybe a flashing sky. Flashing sky. Tentacles and a twisting feminine torso seemed to wage war against nature itself, causing a pealing of thunder that shook creation itself. It was Arista, to be sure. She had taken on her sea witch form, a shape she had claimed was merely for the bottom of the ocean. Garrett felt sick to his gut when he saw her, not for her form, not for her figure, what he knew in his heart. His heart, not hers. His heart she was doing. Her cry of fury and anguish caught on the wind and was delivered to his ears, where it crawled inside him and made his heart ache. Where it crawled inside him, caught on the wind and was delivered to his ears, where it crawled inside him. I don't need those lines at all. Arista, no, he breathed, and then screamed. Arista, no, until his throat ached, but the same wind tore his words away and made them seem as a whisper inside the storm. She was trying to break the barrier. Okay, that deserves its own punch. The creaking of wood caught his ear, and he looked in time to spy his oceanside bungalow lean and then collapse under the weight of the storm. Trees swayed this way and that along the shoreline and began to buckle by the roots and fall. Sand whipped up and stung his face like thousands of tiny insects, but Garrett moved forward. He couldn't help but think of his first night, the first storm that brought him to indoor waters, and wonder if this fury, this pain hadn't been the cause. His feet moved on their own as he continued to call to her with all his might against the wind. The turbid water foamed around his ankles like a rabid dog, and still he pressed forward. The surf rose to greet him and crashed against his frame. Yet still he moved by some pulling of pain into the blackened water, calling in the hopes that some vortex of wind might catch his voice and bring it to her enough to calm her senses and bring her to peace. He couldn't help but think of his first night. That first storm that brought him into her waters, and wonder if this fury, this pain hadn't been the cause. His feet moved on their own as he continued to call with all his might against the wind. The turbid white water foamed around his ankles like a rabid dog, and still he pressed forward. The surf rose to greet him and crashed against his frame, yet still he moved by some pulling of pain into the blackened water, calling him in the hopes that some vortex of wind might catch his voice. And bring it to her. To calm her senses and bring her peace. He swam against the current and the world. By some pain pulling or some pulling of pain. Leave that for now. He swam against the current in the world. He swam Take out all of that. Yeah. He swam against the current with all his human awkwardness. His land-born limbs flailed against the volume that threatened to swallow him with every roll and pitch of its turbid surf. That's a lot of sentence right there. He swam. No, he swam against the current with all his human awkwardness. Sentence break, capital. His land-born limbs flailed against the volume that threatened to swallow him with every roll and pitch of its turbid surface. He dove and kicked forward even as he felt the sea try to push him back to land, back to where he belonged. He raised his head above the surface and breathed deep the rain-soaked air, but by then it was too late. His passion and his hubris had brought him too far, yet not far enough to save her from her torment. Garrett was drowning. He awoke upon wet sand under a calm sky, though it was Arista's salt-laden tears falling on his face that had roused him from the brink of what felt like death. It was Arista's, I misspelled Arista. It was Arista's salt-laden tears falling on his face. That roused him from the brink of what felt like death. Roused him from the brink of death, his hand raised to her face, catching her sadness. When she saw he was awake, her sobs came harder, and her body shook between regret and relief. Garrett, her breath burst. Okay. Garrett, her breath burst into another round of renewed weeping. Garrett, I'm so sorry. Sorry for trapping you here, for not being able to leave, for keeping you here. I tried. I've tried so many times, and I just can't move beyond these borders. The horizon. It beckons and rebuffs me. I know there's a better life for you out there, but you stay. You stay for me. I stay, he said, smiling through tears of his own, for me. I stay because I found a treasure here that I can't leave behind. The horizon, my kingdom, the whole world beckons me, but I made a choice, a vow, that if I can't see it with you, I don't want it at all. You're a fool, she sighed, as though defeated. Sitting up, he reached to put his arm around her, but she pushed herself away, and with a languid, foreboding stare, returned to the sea. And that's the end of chapter 14. Okay. This is where I use ChatGPT again. It is a tool that I appreciate. Alright. Done with one revision. About to go through again for a final pass. What do I need to look for? Oh, Rizzy, I love that you sleep on me, dude. I love that we've gotten to this point. This is some bonding stuff. Okay. This is a final pass chapter now, not a structural one. You've already done the hard work. The emotional spine is sound. The escalation is clear. The storm lands where it should. What you're looking for now is clarity, pressure, and restraint. Here's what to keep in the back of your brain as you do this last pass, broken into practical lenses you can actively scan for. Look for micro redundancy, not big cuts. Yeah, that's a big issue for me. You don't need to remove scenes. You need to compress sentences that repeat the same emotional beat. What to watch for: 2 adjectives doing the same job, a sentence explaining what the previous sentence already showed, emotional restatement right after dialogue, example pattern to flag, not quoting, just illustrating. He felt fear, his heart raced in terror, he was afraid of what would happen next. Keep one of those, preferably the most concrete. On this pass, ask, does this sentence add new information or just reinforce mood? If it's the later, trim or fuse. Verb strength, adjective density. You write lushly and well, but in a final pass, you want verbs doing the lifting, not descriptors. Scan for was constructions, passive emotional states. Example to tighten mentally. Her expression was unreadable. Can become something like, she watched him without blinking. You don't need to rewrite everything, just sharpen key moments. The shaving fake out, the net failure, the storm reveal, the drowning realization. Those are your load-bearing scenes. Dialogue trim, the obvious line. Your dialogue is strong. The danger now is over-clarifying. Final pass rule: if a line of dialogue restates the emotional meaning of the scene, explains motivation that is already viable, says exactly what the reader already knows, consider cutting or shortening it. Especially watch Garrett. He's thoughtful and articulate, which is good, but in pain, people speak simpler. Shorter lines will make him feel more human and less polished in distress. Watch emotional escalation inside scenes. Each scene should move one notch, not stay level. Quick checklist per beat. Shaving scene, playful intimacy. Fishing, cultural friction. Cooking, mutual curiosity. Song, quiet fracture. Withdrawal, denial. Storm, rupture, aftermath, unresolved love. On your final pass, make sure each scene doesn't feel... Early scenes don't feel as heavy as later ones. The storm feels earned, not just spectacular. If any early paragraph feels as intense as the storm, dial it back slightly. Pronoun names and physical orientation. This is boring but crucial in final passes. Look for specifically who is standing, sitting, swimming, whose hand is whose, sudden shifts in proximity without transition. You're good at imagery, so just make sure that the camera doesn't jump unintentionally. Grammar and copy edit hotspots do a cold scan. These are the kinds of things editors mark, even in strong prose. Crestfallen, missing commas after dialogue tags, blade-like tail. From as sail, from a sail. Repeated words close together. Beckons appears several times. Intentional once, maybe twice, but flag it. Do one pass where you're emotionally dead and only fixing mechanics. The ending, let it breathe, do not add. This is important. Do not improve the ending by explaining it more. The final exchange works because Garrett chooses, Arista cannot, neither wins. On your last read, only ask, do I trust the reader to sit in this discomfort? If yes, stop. One final gut check question. After the storm scene, ask yourself, does this chapter change what the reader believes is possible for these two? If the answer is yes, you're done. In short, on the final pass, cut 5 to 10% inside paragraphs, not scenes. Sharpen verbs, shorten dialogue under stress, fix mechanics, resist the urge to explain pain. You're not polishing raw emotion, raw material anymore. You're getting out of the way of a chapter that already knows what it's doing. If you want, next we can do a true copy edit pass or tune the first page of chapter 15 so it lands cleanly after this emotional drop. But for now, this chapter earns its weight. Okay. So I gotta do another pass. I want to drop my word count now by 6 words. I got 6 words I want to take out at least. 7 would be better. 107 would be even better than that, I think. But yeah. But Rizzy, I want to put you back in your terrarium, dude. You've been out with me for a while now, and I appreciate it. But I think it's time to actually properly put you to bed, buddy. What time is it? It's definitely past your bedtime. You've been a good boy. You've been a good boy. I thought I was going to have to put you away early because of how much you were squirming around. You've been such a good boy. Yeah, oh, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. Thank you for hanging out with me. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, dig into my skin. Yep. My buddy. Hi, my buddy. Hi. Oh, let's get that foot. Let's get that nail out of my shirt. Okay. Okay, dude. Okay. You go, my guy. Oh, Mo. All right. Let's get in this final pass. Ugh. Yeah, 14 is the chapter. Like, as I was writing the draft, I was dreading working on this one. Because it felt like it was, I don't know, one of the most mechanical ones to do. Chapter 14. One morning, Garrett awoke to an alarming sight. Now, one morning, this actually works. I almost want to indent this just because it's the beginning of a chapter. Tab. Remember Tab? We used to tab everything back in the day. One morning, Garrett awoke to an alarming sight. His beloved Arista was standing above him wielding a blade, her expression unreadable. One morning, Garrett awoke to an alarming sight. His beloved Arista was standing above him wielding a blade, her expression unreadable. Her eyes wide and unblinking. He startled to full consciousness and attempted to crawl back, only to find himself cornered by the wall of his cave. Arista, no, he pleaded, crestfallen that it had come to this. I can't take it anymore, Garrett. There was an angry desperation in her voice. Her stare was vacant, unholy, as the knife edge gleamed. This has gone on far too long. I must cut this short. His heart sank. Arista, please, he pleaded softly, terrified of what would come next. No, Garrett, I've put up with this, long enough. She pointed the blade closer to his face. This thing between us is over. I'm cutting it off. Arista, my love, please, he begged. Can't we talk about this? No, my darling, it's over. She leapt upon his lap, straddling him, and pressed his shoulder against the cave wall with her free hand. She brought the edge of the blade to his throat as it quivered in her grasp. I can't stand your beard any longer. I must shave it off. Now stay still. Garrett laughed as his fear melted away. Let's make that panic. This is panic. Melted. And then do we need a way? No, we don't need a way. Just melted. Garrett laughed as his panic melted. Reaching out slowly, he put his still trembling hand over hers and pushed the knife away from his neck. I understand. Let me do it. Don't you trust me? She asked in hurt dismay as her grip slackened slightly. Slackened, let's get rid of slightly. Have you ever shaved a man's face before? He asked. Well, no, she responded, but if I cut you, I can heal you. Taking the blade, he assured her, It's fine, love. Message received. With that, he went to the pond and examined his reflection in the calm water. I suppose, he murmured as he ran his fingers through the long beard that had dominated his face. I haven't shaved since I arrived on this island. It was thick, burly, and brown, and Garrett suddenly understood why she had been avoiding his kisses. You've become hairier than the boar did, she mocked with a restrained disgust. Yet only on your head. Such a curious creature you are. Garrett trimmed away the beard that had covered his face in carefully measured movements. Oh, I just said in careful movements. What if I just said carefully? Arista watched in fascination at his gradual transformation. Is this how humans become less feral? She asked in quiet wonder. I suppose so, he muttered. While gliding the blade up his throat, exposing a path of soft skin brimming red with the irritation. Do human women shave? Should I grow a beard to appear more normal for you? Don't you dare, he chuckled. You're perfect in whatever form you take. And yes, as I understand it, women shave other parts of themselves to make themselves more attractive. Something you don't have to worry about. Garrett then sharply cried, "Damn it, I cut myself." A ribbon of blood ran down his throat from his cheek where the fresh wound had appeared. "Here, my love," she said, drawing near and raising a hand to his face. "Let me heal you." Little misunderstandings like this kept their days interesting. Arista drifted in her mermaid form through the water beside the rock where Garrett had been working for hours, waiting for her return. He showed her the net that he had been knotting, pride plain on his face. She recoiled, her tail slapping the surface. A vile contrivance. The ocean is choked with these. I have torn myself free of them more than once. They do not catch life, they murder it. But this is the best way to gather fish quickly, Garrett said. Arista rolled her eyes and submerged. From the rock, Garrett watched her open her arms and work her jaw, singing some unheard aria beneath the waves. When she surfaced again, she beamed with her usual arrogant pride. Within moments, the water churned with silver. Schools of fish swarmed the shallows. Arista plucked one from the sea as easily as fruit from a branch, raised a regal brow, and smirked. "Cast your horrible abomination, human," she said, hauling herself onto the rock beside him. "Let us see how useful it is." She bit into the still wriggling fish, crunching through flesh and bone, and chewed thoughtfully. He cast the net into the shoal with excitement, then yelped as it went taut at once. He pulled, straining, and felt the cords begin to snap one by one. With a sigh of disgust, Arya seized the net with one hand, her other still clutching her breakfast, and hauled it effortlessly to shore. She did not look impressed. "So," she said coolly, "it either works too little to matter or too well for you to manage. A feckless, fickle device that breaks and becomes garbage in the very ocean you get your food from." She glanced at the writhing fish. "Why do you humans use such things when you could simply speak to them?" And then half sighed to herself. They are such simple creatures, after all. Garrett squinted in dismay as he looked at her. "The fish, my dear," she added sweetly, "not you." He was not fully convinced. Garrett tried to impress her with his skill with hooks after that. She laughed, changing her arm into a glittering imitation of prey, and caught 3 fish before his line even went taut. Garrett nodded with a resigned grin. "I think I'll stick to hunting on land from now on." "An excellent choice," she said with regal satisfaction, flicking her hair back as though she'd just won some grand, not great, grand domestic challenge. They sat together on a sun-warmed rock, the sea foaming gently below. Arista held one of the fish she had caught earlier, her prize. Garrett reached for it. "Here, give it to me. I'll gut it and cook it for you." "Cook?" she repeated, eyebrows lifting. "You'll ruin it. It's fresh and vital now, filled with salt and nutrients from the sea." She clutched the wriggling, gasping creature to her breast. Before he could argue, she bit into the fish's belly with a swift, unapologetic rending of its flesh. Garrett recoiled. "Arista, gods no! At least remove the organs and bones first." She chewed, entirely pleased, juice and brine running down her chin. "What?" "Why?" she asked through a mouthful. "It is perfect as is." Let's see. He pleaded crest. There, that's one. Boom. It's supposed to be one word. I had it as 2. Um. Waiting for a return, he showed her the net he'd been nodding. What else am I missing? Missing commas after dialogue tags. With a sigh of disgust, Arista seized the net with one hand. Sat together on a sun-warmed rock, the sea foaming gently below. Arista held the fish. He recoiled. Arista, gods no. At least remove the organs and bones first. She chewed, entirely pleased, juice and brine running down her chin. So you need to be entirely pleased or just pleased? Juice and brine running down her chin. It is perfect as is. Perhaps difficult. Perhaps it is difficult with these flat human teeth to bite through, but delicious. The soft organs blend in a myriad of flavors, and the bones, although sharp, offer a satisfying crunchiness that I adore. Garrett pressed a hand to his forehead. You didn't even, it's raw. And, she blinked innocently, taking another bite. Fire destroys things and makes them sink. It dries all it touches and causes them to become brittle. Only if you're careless, he said, dismayed at her dignified speech in contrast to her barbarous behavior. She paused mid-bite. Why ruin it? It serves its purpose, my life in exchange for it. He groaned and reached for the remaining half of the fish. Give it here, let me show you. She took another nibble before reluctantly passing it over. A short while later, he had a small fire going, the fish cleaned, skewered, and sizzling, the air filled with a scent of crisping skin. Arista watched the entire process like he was performing some deeply concerning ritual, her expression shifting from curiosity and alarm. Expression shifting between curiosity and alarm, particularly at the wasted entrails and head that he had cast aside. You do all this, she said slowly, just to eat one small animal, and only a part? Yes, Garrett said, flipping the fish. Only the best parts, and they're delicious. She leaned close to the fire, sniffing tentatively. Her eyes fluttered. It smells strange, smoky. Good strange, he insisted, tearing off a flaky piece and offering it to her. She took it with the caution of someone handed a mysterious artifact. She chewed thoughtfully, then her eyes widened. This tastes, she paused, chewing again with a rising wonder. This tastes delicious, enhanced. Then she frowned. But why? Because I cooked all the ocean out of it and made it easier to chew. She raised a brow and gave him a conflicted look before tearing off another piece, more eagerly this time. Well, she said, at least lifting her chin with sustained dignity, the sea never asks anything to be changed to be loved, but perhaps the land, her voice softened, has some small wisdom after all. To it. To teach. Garrett grinned. High praise. He said sarcastically, do not get used to it, she said around another mouthful. I feel like I need to add breaks to all these time skips that I'm doing. The shadows were growing longer as the setting sun painted the sky a blazing orange. Garrett washed his bloodied hands in the creek, and as he dried them on his loincloth, fashioned from a sail, examined his reflection in the water, noting how the island had changed him. At his side hung some skinned rodents, the bounty of his traps, which had become successful after slaying the large boar. His body was tan and lean from his island diet and the work that went into finding it. His hair had grown long and was tied back in a long, wavy tail, in contrast to his face that was clean-shaven to keep Arista happy. For Arista's sake, let's do happiness. For Arista's happiness. He hardly recognized himself from the pampered prince that had washed ashore so many months prior. Garrett smiled with contentment at the stranger smiling back at him. Soon he would sit to eat with his beloved, and felt that that was all he wanted in this world. On the gentle breeze was the familiar scent of salt and hibiscus, and the sound of a soft, sweet song. Though he knew the melody well, he had never learned the words, but still felt every note was etched on his heart despite not having heard it in months. I think I need that. He followed the trail of the melody as he once had, as if in a dream. As he neared the shore, the song met with the rhythm of the tide. He walked along the beach, pulled by the melody. Yeah, I use melody way too much. He knew its cadence well. He had never learned the words, but still felt every note was etched on his heart. Still felt every note etched on his heart. He followed the trail of the melody, the trail of the tune, as he once had, as if in a dream. As he neared the shore, the song met with the rhythm of the tide. He walked along the beach, pulled by the melody. He followed the trail of the tune as he once had in a dream. He walked along the beach, pulled by the melody. Those are very similar. He walked the beach, pulled along by the melody. He followed the trail. Those two are so similar. He followed the trail of the tune as he once had, as if in a dream. As he neared the shore, the song met with the rhythm of the tide. He followed the trail of the tune as he once had, as if in a dream. As he once had in a dream. As he neared the shore, the song met with the rhythm of the tide. Okay, that's caps locks. Garrett walked the beach, pulled along by the melody. At last he saw her, Arista, sitting upon her throne of rocks, singing the same sad song he once found so seductive. He marveled at her beauty in the waning day. He felt a familiar longing to wander out to her, but steadied. Through the waves, but steadied his resolve by waiting at the shore. He looked out over the distant horizon and shared in the emotion of the song. He recognized the desire. He felt, he looked, he recognized, he marveled, he followed the trail. That's a lot of he's. He marveled at her beauty in the waning day. What if we make that marveling at her beauty in the waning day? He felt the familiar longing to wander into the waves. Yet steadied his resolve. By waiting on the shore. Looking out over the distant horizon, Garrett shared in the emotion of the song. He recognized the desire to leave that place, to no longer be bound. Garrett rekindled a fire. At a familiar site situated with logs for sitting that they had used many times before, and started cooking his quarry. The smell of smoke and meat brought Arista out of her melodic state. hypnotic state, and she swam to him, transforming at the water's edge. As she neared, she tilted her head and called to him. "What's wrong, my love? You look so sad." "No," Garrett said quietly, "not sad, just remembering." He turned the meat over the fire, watching the fat hiss and drip into the embers. "Your song makes me think of the life I had before I knew you," he admitted. "Of my parents, of faces that will never see what I've become." He hesitated, then added softer, I chose this place. I chose you. But sometimes I wonder who I would be if I hadn't." The next day, Arista seemed particularly forlorn. Where there had been joy and happiness, she suddenly seemed to be withdrawn. Garrett had awoken like he always did these days, with Arista coiled around him, hand on his chest, chin on her hand, looking deeply and expectantly into his eyes as they slowly fluttered open. But this morning, when they had done so, she looked sad, tired, her brow already knitted with some concern that had disturbed her in the night. Garrett rubbed her back and then allowed his hand to settle in the small of it as he asked her what was wrong, only for her to dismiss it and swear that nothing was. But Garrett could tell by the gray, sullen sky that this was not true. As they went about their day of gathering and fishing, she seemed to carry the weight of the night with her well into the afternoon. When evening came, she excused herself back to the sea, claiming the land had had enough of her. "Please, my love," she asked with a sweetness that made his teeth hurt, "return to your cave and do not come out. Tonight there may be a storm coming." "My love," he returned painfully, because her unspoken ache had lodged itself in his heart. "What's wrong? If something is bothering you, please tell me so you at least feel better." "It is nothing, Garrett." She looked away, but let her hand tarry over his. "It is simply that the sea beckons me to restore." She let her words and her feet dwindle away as she seemed to walk with extra pain in her steps down the beach and into the sea. There was no coy return of looks. She simply faced the horizon and ushered in the change like a rolling of the tide. Leapt out of the water once, and with a flick of her large blade-like tail was gone. Garrett watched for a moment, feeling something squeeze in his chest before turning and letting the dense forest claim him. He slept restlessly that night, missing his sea maiden as a chill settled into the air. Whatever semblance of sleep he got was disturbed by a raging wind. By this time, he had replaced his wicker wall with something of stone, so he was secure, but the anger of the air roused him and drew him out. Yet the anger of the air roused him and drew him out. Rain fell in tattered torrents that would not have allowed for a torch. Rain fell in tattered torrents that would not have allowed for a torch. Allow for a torch, but Garrett knew the path down to the beach as intimately as the touch of her hand by now. When he arrived on the shore, he saw the sky ripping itself asunder with electricity roaring with the fury of a forsaken god. Roaring with the fury of a forsaken god, and then, in the midst of it, far out to sea, and there, yeah, fuck you, fruit fly. Sorry, buddy. And there, far out to sea, he spied a monstrous shape set like a twisting dark shadow against the flashing sky. the flashing horizon. Tentacles in a twisting feminine torso seemed to wage war against nature itself, causing a pealing of thunder that shook creation itself. It was Arista, to be sure. She had taken on her sea witch form. A shape she had claimed was merely for the bottom of the ocean. Garrett felt sick to his gut when he saw her, not for her figure, but for what he knew in his heart she was doing. Her cry of fury and anguish caught on the wind and was delivered to his ears, where it crawled inside him. "Arista, no!" he breathed and screamed. "Arista, no!" until his throat ached, but the same wind tore his words away and made them seem as a whisper inside the storm. She was trying to break the barrier. A creaking of wood caught his ear, and he looked in time to see his oceanside bungalow lean and then collapse under the weight of the storm. Trees swayed this way and that along the shoreline and began to buckle by the roots and fall. Sand whipped up and stung his face like thousands of tiny insects, but Garrett moved forward. He couldn't help but think of his first night, that first storm that brought him into her waters, and wondered if this fury, this pain hadn't been the cause. Hadn't been the very cause. His feet moved on their own as he continued to call with all his might against the wind. The turbid white water foamed around his ankles like a rabid dog, and still he pressed forward. The surf rose to greet him and crashed against his frame, yet still he moved by some pulling of pain. Crashed against his frame, yet still he moved by some pulling of pain into the blackened water, calling in the hopes that some vortex, by some pulling of pain, a pulling of pain into the blackened water, calling in the hopes that the vortex of wind might catch his voice and bring it to her to calm her senses. And calm her. He swam against the current with all his human awkwardness. His land-born limbs flailed against the volume that threatened to swallow him with every roll and pitch of its turbid surface. He dove and kicked forward even as he felt the sea try to push him back to land, back to where he belonged. He raised his head above the surface. His turbid surface, dove and kicked back to where he belonged. He raised his head above of the surface is implied. He raised his head and breathed deep the rain-soaked air, but by then it was too late. His passion and his hubris had brought him too far, yet not far enough to save her from her torment. Garrett was drowning. He awoke upon wet sand under a calm sky. It was Arista's salt-laden tears falling on his face that roused him from the brink of death. His hand raised to her face, catching her sadness. When she saw he was awake, her sobs came harder, and her body shook between regret and relief. "Garrett!" Her breath burst into another round of renewed weeping. "Garrett, I'm so sorry. Sorry for trapping you here, for not being able to leave, for keeping you here. I tried. I've tried so many times, and I just can't move beyond those borders. The horizon, it beckons and rebuffs me. I know there's a better life for you out there, but you stay for me. I stay, he said, smiling through tears of his own, from me. I stay because I found a treasure here I can't leave behind. The horizon, my kingdom, the whole world beckons me, but I made a choice. A vow, that if I can't see it with you, then I don't want it at all. You're a fool, she sighed as though defeated. Sitting up, he reached to put his arm around her, but she pushed away. The languid, foreboding stare returned to the sea. Okay. I think I'm done for now. What other changes should I consider? I did not find a section loaded with beckons. Feel like I got most of the repetitions hammered out. Control V. Boom. What do we got? You're right. This is done enough to rest. What remains are not fixes so much as editorial considerations, the kind you either applied now in a light pass or leave for a later manuscript wide sweep. Here's what I would still consider ranked by impact, not urgency. Decide how polished you want Garrett's voice to be. Consistency. Garrett currently oscillates, intentionally but sometimes unevenly, between earnest, simple survivor and articulate, near-poetic prince. This can work, but only if it feels intentional. Where to look? Dialogue under stress, storm confrontations, introspective narration. Ask yourself, is Garrett eloquent because he is educated or because the narrator is carrying him? That's a tightrope. You might consider slightly simplifying his spoken lines while letting narration remain lyrical. For example, the horizon, my kingdom, the whole world beckons me. Beautiful, but almost too composed for a man who nearly drowned. You don't have to change it, just flag it mentally to a voice consistency pass later. One subtle thematic thread to track, change versus being changed. This chapter quietly argues something important. The sea refuses change, the land demands it. Love sits uncomfortably between those truths. You've done this well, but if you revise later, you could sharpen it by slightly trimming lines where the theme is explained, letting action carry the meaning. Example to watch for, conceptually, lines that tell us the land teaches wisdom. Instead, let Garrett's scars, diet, beard, traps, and choices speak. Again, optional, not required. Mechanical notes to catch on a cold pass, low drama, high payoff. These are small but worth flagging. Comma density in long sentences. You favor extended flowing sentences, which suits the tone, but a copy editor will almost certainly break some up. Dialogue tags and beats. Occasionally you have high praise, he said sarcastically. The adverb is doing the work the dialogue already does. You could often cut it and trust tone. Minor phrasing cleanups. Examples to scan for later. Only Okay. Okay. Only one. one part. Okay. sarcastically. It serves its purpose. Peal of thunder that shook creation itself. Storm scene is strong, consider one less metaphor. It's the only place I'd caution restraint. The storm sequence is effective, but also the densest metaphor cluster in the chapter. If you ever revise, look for one metaphor you love slightly less, cut just that one. You don't need to thin the whole passage, just give the reader a breath so the remaining image hits harder. The ending is doing exactly what it should. Do not resolve it further. What works? Garrett chooses staying. Arista cannot choose leaving. Love is real but insufficient. Her final withdrawal is emotionally correct. If anything, its restraint is its strength. If you ever revise the ending, the one question to ask is, does this silence ache enough? Right now it does. The most important change to consider, none. This is worth saying plainly. You're at that point where additional tinkering risks sanding off texture. This chapter advances the relationship, marks time, introduces philosophical conflict, escalates into mythic stakes, ends unresolved. That's a hard combination, and you pulled it off. What I do next when you're ready, not today, later, write chapter 15 cold without rereading 14. Let the emotional residue guide tone, then come back and adjust transitions if needed. For now, close the document, let it breathe. You didn't miss anything obvious. What's left are editorial preferences, not problems. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to call 14 for now. I've got a macro pass that I'm going to do later. What time is it? 5, 6? Is it 6? 6:36. Holy shit. Alright, so yeah, this is saved. Let's go ahead and close that. File, open. Drowning, chapter 15. 2,980 words. Okay. Control C. All right. Here's chapter 15. What do I need to keep in mind or watch for as I begin to edit this final chapter? You've written a big ending, emotionally, mythically, and thematically, and that's exactly where a final chapter earns its danger. When you edit this, you're not looking to add power so much as prevent dilution of the power you already have. Below are the key things to keep in mind as you begin editing 15. Organized by what to protect and what to watch for. Protect the emotional spine, do not over-explain it. At its core, this chapter is about choice versus rescue. Arista believes love means letting go. Garrett believes love means staying, even if it costs everything. The island functions as a third will, a test, a border, a lie that can only be broken by mutual sacrifice. This spine is already strong. Your biggest risk is saying it too many times in too many ways. Watch for repeated phrasing of, I want you to live, you can't stay, I choose you, etc. Multiple speeches that restate the same emotional truth without escalating it. Editing rule. If a line does not advance the argument or sharpen it, consider cutting it or compressing it. You often turn a paragraph of explanation into one charged sentence with teeth. You can often turn a paragraph of explanation into one charged sentence with teeth. Okay. Tighten dialogue where it becomes circular. The confrontation around the raft is excellent, but it runs long in places because both characters are emotionally honest and verbally thorough. That's realistic, but fiction needs pressure. Ask yourself for each exchange, is this new information or the same wound touched again? Does this line corner the other character or let them breathe? For example, these are strong. You build me a future without you. I cannot be your only happiness. Choosing me means dying here. But once those truths are spoken, let them hang. Trust the reader to feel the weight. Suggestion, trim some responses so that silence, action, or physical reaction carries the emotion instead. Watch tonal drift near the end, especially after burning the raft. The raft burning is a symbolic climax. Garrett rejects the world. He performs an irreversible act. It mirrors mythic renunciation, Odysseus, Orpheus, etc. After that moment, the story briefly risks over-sweetening before the twist. Watch for too much romantic affirmation before the island sinks, language that sounds like a storybook ending before the cost is revealed. You want the reader to think they've won, but something feels wrong. A little restraint here will make sinking the island hit harder. Clarify the island's logic without explaining it. The island rejects Arista, rejects Garrett, breaks only when both reject the false choice it imposes. This works mythically, but you should ensure cause and effect is felt, even if not explained. Watch for ambiguity about why the island sinks now. Confusion about whether the sinking is punishment, release, or consequence. You don't need exposition, but small phrasing tweaks can imply the island existed to contain Arista. Garrett's return plus Arista's willingness to let him go equals paradox. The system collapses. One or two subtle lines reinforcing this will ground the ending. Final lines, let humor be the release, not the undercut. The very last line, I really shouldn't have burned that raft, should I? This works because it releases tension, it reasserts Garrett's humanity, it echoes earlier banter, but be careful not to undercut the awe of what just happened. Editing advice, keep the line, make sure the paragraph before it carries sufficient stillness and magnitude. Think silence, revelation, breath, then humor. Technical pass, cleanup checklist. On a purely mechanical level, watch for typos and spacing. Was under instead of was under. Repeated words, missing commas, overlong sentences where emotions blur clarity, consistency in Arista's physical descriptions, ears, gills, tails, island geography during the sinking, pronoun ambiguity in action-heavy storm moments. This chapter is dense. Clarity matters more here than anywhere else. One final question to ask yourself only once before locking it. Ask, is this ending about love conquering the world or love refusing a false world? Your chapter is strongest when it's the second. Garrett doesn't win by escaping. He wins by refusing to be saved from the thing he chose. If a sentence nudges the story toward romantic destiny instead of earned defiance, that's where to cut. Bottom line, you don't need to add anything major. You need to sharpen, compress, and trust. This is a mythic ending with emotional honesty. Your job in editing is simply to make sure nothing dulls the blade. If you want, next we can do a line level tightening pass, or focus specifically on Arista's arc consistency, or a polish of the last 3 pages only, which is often where finals live or die. I'll be taking a break for now. Need to eat and reset. If I'm a good boy, I'll be back to finish this tonight. If not, I'll be doing this in the morning. But yeah, I gotta make dinner. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do for dinner. I could just pop in a pizza and be lazy. Or I could cook a proper meal. I've got like a pork roast I need to eat. But if I eat that, I'm gonna get lazy. I don't know. But yeah, this is like my final grand chapter. I really would love to get this done tonight. We'll see. But I gotta call it for now, I think. It sounds like the right call. You just wrestled a storm into shape. Your head and heart both need fuel before you ask them to work again. Eat something real, hydrate, step away long enough that your words stop echoing. When you come back tonight or in the morning, you'll see the chapter more clearly, and the edits will feel like guidance instead of resistance. You did good work today. The story's still there waiting for you. It isn't going anywhere. Rest, reset. We'll finish it when you're ready. Alright. Yeah, it's been almost 3 hours working on chapter 13. And that was just adding a draft section, cleaning, doing a lot of stuff. Alright. Yeah, I gotta eat, I gotta adult, I gotta do other stuff. I hope I will be back on later. I hope I don't get lazy and veg out in front of the TV set. But given my pattern of behavior, that's very likely. Alrighty, thank you, Drowning Devil, for hanging out. I appreciate your banter and your chat. Anyone else who's been here, thank you. You are appreciated. I will be back, hopefully tonight, to at least start on 15. Based on the way things are going, I probably will not finish it, but I should start. I hope to start it. Alright. Later.